And it's in Maryland where we bring you the story of a woman known as Woodlawn Jane Doe. Here with the details is Michelle Sagona.
Matt, it's been nearly 40 years since Woodlawn Jane Doe was found brutally murdered. But now a breakthrough in the case might finally give investigators what they need to not only identify her, but find her killer.
Take a good look.
She was beautiful. She looked like an everyday daughter or sister to somebody.
Now imagine that she's your sister or daughter.
Somebody must know who this young woman is.
And she's been lying in a nameless grave for over 30 years.
This was a brutal, brutal murder.
But could one of the coldest of cold cases finally be on the verge of a breakthrough? The mystery began on a September morning in 1976 near a cemetery in Woodlawn, Maryland.
Between 9:20 and 10:20 that morning, a woman was driving by with her daughter in the car, and they saw a van leaving this area. Within an hour, a gentleman driving down Dogwood Road saw what he thought was a human body, which was lying right here in this particular area. Her head was at this angle facing towards Dogwood Road. Her feet were up in that area.
Detective Dave Jacoby is still haunted by the gruesome crime scene.
Her upper torso had been wrapped in a sheet. Underneath of that sheet were some bandanas wrapped around her head. What was unusual about that was some eye slits had been cut out of those bandanas. Her hands were bound behind her back with rope. She was also bound around her neck. We believe that she was murdered somewhere else and that she was placed possibly in the back of that van and driven around while the killer looked for a convenient place to dispose of the body.
Even more disturbing, an autopsy reveals that she was violently sexually assaulted before being savagely strangled.
We found a necklace wrapped around her neck. The necklace was a piece of rawhide and had almost what I would describe as a coral blue stone with a hole in the center of it hanging from it. From there, we found a seed bag. What we discovered was that the Farm Bureau produced this particular product in the Buffalo area of New York, and that it was only distributed to 5 different places in the state of Massachusetts. We found some keys in her pocket. We also discovered that those keys had been manufactured in the Massachusetts area.
And here's something else. The woman had traces of chlorpromazine in her stomach, a powerful sedative often used in psychiatric hospitals. Plus, the sheet she was wrapped in was 130 thread count, a low-quality material commonly found in institutions. Is it possible that Jane was a psychiatric patient in Massachusetts, or that her killer worked at the facility?
What we do know is we have a young lady who's 5 feet 9 inches tall, weighed approximately 149 pounds. She has an 1.5 inch long scar on her thigh. She has a tattoo on her arm with the initials JP.
Another unique physical trait, the victim had a widow's peak. Yet despite all this evidence, a tireless effort with authorities in Massachusetts failed to produce any leads to Woodlawn's Jane Doe. And as months passed into years, any hope of identifying the victim or her deranged killer began to fade.
We haven't been able to identify this young lady to this day. Someone has to know who she is.
Jacoby's determination to bring Jane justice is shared by forensic scientist Laura Pulowski.
She could be from anywhere, so how do you narrow the focus when you're trying to identify someone, especially at this late date when you can't even pinpoint what area of the country they're from?
But after more than 3 decades comes a glimmer of hope from a most unexpected source.
Coming up next, the amazing technology that could bring the dead-end search for Woodlawn Jane Doe back to life.